Hey everybody, Laura Lee here from Artistically Mused. I know we have a different view tonight and there's a reason for that. I wanted to do things this way for one of two reasons. I wanted to show you guys a little bit kind of what it looks like when I do a overhead video. The overhead videos of all of our paint events are exclusive for Muse members. They are in our website, artisticallymused.com. And I wanted to give you guys just kind of an overview of what it looks like when I do a painting like this. I'll just quickly grab our painting that we did last night. And usually what I'll do is I'll do the painting like this. So it's a little easier to kind of see things. You can see what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. So I wanted to show you guys kind of that point of view as well. And that point of view is exclusive for Muse members on artisticallymused.com. The second reason for doing it this way is I think it's a little easier for you guys to see what we're doing, especially with a subject like color theory. I'm just taking a second here and I'm just fixing up my phone so I can see the feed. There we go. Oops, sorry, let me turn that down a little bit. There we go. Okay, hi Terry, how are you? I know quite a few people weren't able to pop on tonight, and that's okay because this video will stay up on the Artistically Mused page for quite a bit. I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about color. So I get quite a few people messaging me in regards to color and color theory. And I wanted to really show you guys, I'm sorry, I'm just going to fix the camera for a second there. Sorry, that's jostling around a little bit. There we go, that's a little bit better. I wanted to address some of the questions that I get in regards to color. I know that quite a few people have some issues. There's more to painting than simply applying pigment to your canvas. Mixing colors is just as important. I'm juggling around there, sorry. Mixing colors is just as important as the technique or style of your painting. So choosing the right hues can make a huge impact on conveying the emotion of the painting. It kind of goes hand in hand with the subject matter. It's really important to learn how to mix colors when you first begin your painting practice. In doing so, your work will have a better kind of overall, an overall pleasing view to it. Many of us have the urge to just use colors from the paint tube, but sometimes those colors aren't exactly what we're looking for. And actually learning how to properly mix paint, I've got paint on my hands because I was doing some work earlier. Mixing paint will actually do a couple things. Number one, it'll help you get to know your color. It'll help you kind of learn how to match colors, create colors, and kind of get the look that you're looking for. It will also, I'm looking for my paper towel here, there we go. It will also help you save quite a bit of money. So essentially almost any color that you could ever want can be made with your three primaries and then your black and your white. So we're going to take a little bit of time tonight and we're going to take a look and get acquainted with the color basics. Excuse me. So I know some of the words can get really confusing, you know, tint, tone, hue, shade. It can all get really confusing and overwhelming, but I'm going to try my very best to kind of clarify that for you tonight. So let's get acquainted with some color basics. Before you can master mixing color, you've kind of got to know the basics of color. So let's start with the word hue. Hue refers to the origin of the color we see. So hue is essentially one of the 6 to 12 pure pigments. When I say 6 to 12 pure pigment I mean color. You have your 3 primary, you have your 3 secondary, and we'll actually do a color wheel tonight so you can see. And those are your 6. So those are your primary, which is your blue, red, and yellow, and your secondary colors, which you get by mixing your primary colors. So red and yellow will give you orange. Yellow and blue will give you green. And blue and red will give you purple. So those are your 6 basic hues. So we are going to do a quick color wheel tonight, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit about color mixing. So I just have, I'm just using tonight this Bristol vellum pad. I like it. It's thick paper, and it's really good for multi-medium stuff. So I just have, it's literally just a thicker paper, and it's really good for doing studies and kind of playing with color, playing with, I'm going the wrong way there. There we go. I'm trying to center that for you. Hi, Mel. So we're going to do a basic color wheel tonight. So if you have a compass, that's wonderful. You can use that. If you don't, you can actually use plates. So I just have 2 little foam plates here. And I've got a pencil, and I'm basically just going to draw myself a big circle. And I know sometimes when you think about, you know, a color wheel, that's kind of basic. I don't need to do that. I know what my colors are. As a seasoned artist of 30 plus years, I do color wheels all the time. I do color wheels to do studies of color. I do color wheels in preparation for a painting because it's a good idea. Think of it if you're a athlete. Athletes practice all the time. They know, you know, a hockey player knows how to play hockey. They know the rules, they know how to play, but they practice for hours and hours and hours a day. And the reason why they do that is to get better and to hone their skills. So the same idea for color theory. So I do a color wheel all the time. I always play with color. And it's very handy to remind yourself of what colors do what. So I've just kind of done 2 little lines there so you can see. I've done 2 circles, a bigger one and a smaller one, just like that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to use a paintbrush to do this. If you have a ruler, that's great. I'm going to, whoops, that paintbrush is a little warped. I'm going to mark the center of the top of my circle here. Okay. And then I'm going to mark about here. Essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a triangle inside that circle. So I'm just going to use my paintbrush. And I'm just doing a couple of lines. I'm basically making a triangle inside that center circle. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect, guys. It's just basically for kind of planning things out and getting used to where we're going to put our colors. So that's essentially what I've done. So I've used a bigger plate, I've done a circle, then I've done a smaller circle, then I've done a little triangle in the center. And now I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to find the center line here. And I'm going to mark that off on the circle right in the center of these 2 lines on all sides. Okay. And I'm going to use just my paintbrush again, and I'm just going to connect the edge of the triangle with that center line, just like that. And again here, and again, it doesn't need to be perfect, guys. This is a study. This is, you know, just kind of doing your wheel. It doesn't have to be perfect. What you can do is, if you, I usually don't do my color wheels this big. I usually do them smaller. I'm doing it this big so you guys can see it. But what you can do is you can actually plan it out, scan it, and then photocopy it onto thicker cardstock if you want, so that you don't need to worry about drawing this every time that you do a color study. So This is my basic color wheel, okay? Now I'm going to start drawing some lines. So I'm going to start off with right at the tip here. I'm going to do a line on either side, and I'm just going to go up like that and up like that. Okay, so either side of that I have 2 lines, and that's going to bug me, so I'm just moving that out a little bit more. There we go. And then I'm going to connect them down. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to come here, just like that. Okay, so 1, 2, and then I'm going to add some extra ones. So essentially what I need is, I'm going to do the same thing for here. So I'm going to do 1 on this side, and you want to try and keep your blocks approximately the same size. Again, doesn't need to be perfect, guys, okay? I'm going to do the same on each one. Oops. It doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, and then I'm basically going to connect those further out. And you can see my lines aren't perfect. I'm not worrying about the lines being perfect. It's more about playing with the color itself. Now you might get a little cranky if things don't look perfect, and that's okay. There we go. Oh, I'm missing one there. So you can see, like, my lines are perfect around there. But it's just so I can get a basic idea of where my colors are. Oh, Jack is here to say hello. Hi, Jack. Oh, Jack. Oh, Jack is on my keyboard. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay. And now in the center, I'm just going to put a dot right in the center of my triangle. And then I'm going to draw a line from there to the center of the bottom of this triangle. Just like that, guys. Okay? And again, you can watch this video later. I recommend watching first and then doing it like that. What I will do actually is I will get a template for you guys of this. I just quickly drew this out. It's a little bit wonky, but I'm not using measurements or anything. Normally I would use measurements, which would take a little bit longer to do, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys an idea. So it is a little bit off, but that's okay, because we're more doing color theory than balance here in proportion. So going back to, sorry about that, guys, going back to what I was saying with the primary colors, we are going to put our primary colors in the center of the wheel. So yellow, which is the brightest color, always goes on the top, right towards the top of the color wheel, okay? And then your red goes to the right, your blue goes to the left. Everybody see that okay? Hi, Eric. Hi, Christy. Hi, Kim. So now what I am going to do, I am going to grab a smaller brush here, and I am going to put in my colors, my basic colors. So my yellow goes in the center here. And again, even if you're a seasoned artist, it's really good to do color wheels and color studies. I will actually have, I'm working on an upcoming mini course, and we're going to be doing a little bit more on color, and we're actually going to do a color journal, which is really cool to do, guys. It really helps you kind of learn to observe colors in nature. It allows you to really understand what colors are made up of. I think I've mentioned in a previous video, I am really, really good at matching colors. And that doesn't come right away. It comes with years and years of practice and, you know, kind of studying color and looking at color. I can, you know, basically look at any photo or anything in nature, and I can pretty much mix that color in a couple minutes. And that comes with practice. You know, like I was saying about sports figures, they practice. They know how to play the game. They just practice because you have to keep your skills sharp. So I've just rinsed off my brush really good. And now I'm going to do my red. And I'm just basically doing my 3 primary colors in here. It doesn't need to be thick. You just want to have those colors in there. So I'm just filling that in quickly. You want it to be a decent coverage of the paint, but not too thick. You'll find with paper like this, it's actually really nice to have as a reference. And doing a color wheel is fun. If you want to do something creative, going back to the doing something creative every day and integrating creativity into your life and reaping the benefits of creativity, if you don't know what to paint, do another color wheel. Color wheels are fun. They allow you to get to know color. Think of it as going on a date with color. You know, when you meet somebody, oh, Jack is on my keyboard again. When you meet somebody, you go on dates to get to know them. So the more you do your color wheel and the more you play with color, the more you're going to get to know it. If you're going to be creating on a daily, monthly, weekly basis, you need to have a relationship with color. And once you hone that relationship, it will be a lot easier to create the images that you want. So I've got my red there. I'm going to rinse my brush off. This is where it's really important to rinse your brush off and clean it really well. I've just got a paper towel here and I'm just cleaning it as I go. Jack is licking my toe. You don't want to water down your paint. If you are using the Deco Art paint, just use it straight out of the bottle. Same thing with any thicker tube paints. This is actually my Chroma Color paint, and I actually buy it in bulk in big gallon containers. But it's the equivalent, a little bit thinner than the equivalent of a tube paint. And it's an artist quality paint, so I usually use that for my studies and my professional work. I'm actually, to let you guys know, the studio is getting almost done, pretty close to completion anyway. And a few years back, before I created the membership, before I created the website, I did a little project for myself to boost creativity. I did a project and I called it 50 in 50 for 50. Essentially what I did was I was feeling really stuck. I hadn't painted for a while and I wanted to do something to kind of unstuck myself. And I basically created 50 small canvases. I make my own stretchers, and I'll actually do a workshop on that too at some point so you guys can see that. I actually did a painting a day for 50 days, and I sold each one for $50. So I'm planning on hopefully doing that again soon, so that'll be fun, so watch for that. There we go. So I've got my yellow, my red, and my blue in here, okay? Now, normally I would have went ahead and done all the extra steps, but I wanted to show you guys how to do this in steps first. So I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to see where these triangles are pointing. That color is actually going to go there as well. So I'm going to bring that yellow to the outside. And what this does, it helps you see the wheel itself. It also helps you see the relationships of the colors. So I'm just going to, and you know, when I drew this really quickly, the segments of the color wheel pie are not exactly even because I kind of did it quickly. So please forgive me for that. I'll actually do a template for you guys, and I'll post it for you. It's going to bother me. It's a little wonky, but it is what it is. it's not as much about the accuracy. We're looking at color today. So, so now I'm going to do my red, and same thing, right where the triangle is pointing, I'm doing that section in that primary color. So your primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. All colors that exist begin with these three hues. Just fill that in. There we go. And again, I'm not doing this too thick. There we go. And I'm making sure that I rinse my brush really well in between because I don't want those colors mixing, right? So I'm rinsing my brush really well, and then I'm drying it off. And then I'm coming in and I'm going to do the final one, which is my blue. And again, my segments are a little bit off. I kind of drew it really quickly. Normally, I would take a little bit more time to measure it, but I didn't want to start off with a finished drawing because I wanted you guys to see how I create it. And like I said, you can spend some time, create a master one, and then you can actually photocopy it. If you have a printer at home and it doesn't take the thicker cardstock, you can just take it to a place like Staples or Kinko's or anything like that, right? So there we go. I'm going to connect that a little bit better. There we go. There we go. So those are our three primary colors. So your yellow, your red, your blue. All colors come and originate from those three hues. Okay? So now we are going to start doing what we call the secondary colors. So the secondary colors are mixed from two of the primaries. Okay? They are green, orange, and purple. So we are going to mix our colors. So this is where, hey Ashley, how are you? This is where a palette knife kind of comes in handy. We're doing like a smaller wheel. If you're going to be doing a lot of color studies and mixing a lot of paint, it's actually better to use a palette knife. One of the reasons why is a palette knife doesn't absorb your paint. If you're using a brush to mix all your paints, you're going to waste a lot of paint getting stuck up in your brush, and you're going to end up, you know, like I said, cleaning in between, and you kind of waste a little bit of paint. So a palette knife is really good. We're going to use a brush today just for argument's sake, because I know a lot of you out there probably don't have a palette brush. So we are now going to mix our secondary colors. The secondary colors, our secondary colors are also called hues. They're pure pigments. So again, a hue is the brightest, most vivid version of a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary color. We'll talk about tertiary in a few minutes. So we'll just talk about primary and secondary right now. So it is the brightest, most vivid version of the primary and secondary colors. So for example, red with no other color mixed into it and undiluted is a hue. So straight pure pigment is a hue. So now we're going to mix our secondary colors. So yellow and blue, can somebody tell me what yellow and blue mixed together makes? I apologize, there's a little bit of a delay, so it might take a second. If somebody can type in what the yellow and blue make. I'll wait for somebody to type. Yellow and blue will make what? Green. Green, right. So our yellow and blue make green. Green is a secondary color, okay? Which means any secondary color is a color mixed with two primary colors. So we are going to take a little dab of yellow. I'm going to actually take a little bit more because we're going to fill in two areas. We're filling in this triangle here, and then we're going to fill in the correspondent wedge right here. So I've got my yellow, and I've got my blue. So I mix those two together, and you have to, in order to get the proper secondary color, you have to make sure that you are mixing equal parts. Not too much blue, not too much yellow. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get the hang of mixing. I'm just adding a little bit of, just a dab of water to it to thin it out a little bit, because when you mix colors together, you're also mixing in a little bit of oxygen, which dries it out a little bit, right? So I'm taking my yellow and my blue, and this is why you would use a palette knife or two, because you know your brush ends up soaking up some of the. So that's a really pretty green color, and I pretty much got half and half. Again, you'll play with it. You'll find it'll take some time, and you know, even as an artist, I take some time and I do color studies and I do my color wheel, because you will forget how to mix colors properly. You'll forget how to mix a pure hue of green. Now I'm just going to paint that in there. That's a really nice green color. It's a little hard to see on the camera because I have a little bit of a shine. Now I have one of my secondary colors, which is green. And like I said, this is a really fun activity to do when you want to do something creative. You want to take a little bit of time for you, and you're not sure what to do. If you're not ready to do a painting, I've actually found in doing color studies, and you know, I'll sit down and do a basic color wheel just for the heck of it. And sometimes it will inspire me to do something. So it's a really good creativity prompt as well. So there is a really pretty green. And now I'm going to do the spot right above there, just so I have the segment of pie that corresponds with that color. Just like that. And the reason why we mixed a little extra green is, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit just because mixing wise it makes more sense to do it this way. So you have your primary, you have your secondary green. Now, if you'll remember, I mentioned something called a tertiary color. So a tertiary color is also a hue. That's where we talk about, you know, there's 6 to 12 hues. A tertiary color is a primary color mixed with its corresponding secondary color. So if I take green and yellow and mix it together, I'm going to get a green yellow. Does that make sense? So on one side of my green palette, I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and I'm going to mix that in. And that's why I did a little extra green, because I knew we were doing our tertiary colors. And don't worry if you're a little confused, we'll kind of review this all after. So now I've added some yellow in there. And I'm going to come in. Actually, I want to add a little bit more. That's a little bit. So essentially what you want to do is the same way we mix the secondary color. You want half green and half yellow. You want it exactly half. There we go. So mix this in. Isn't that a pretty color? So this, if you find it's a little bit too green, that means you haven't mixed in enough yellow. Once you get it down, once you get it down on the paper, you might say, oh, that's a little bit too green. You can add a little bit yellow, but add it to the paint itself and then come back in and do like a quick coat on it. And again, it's okay to mix in a little bit of water just to thin it out a little bit, because when you're mixing color, you'll find it'll get a little, it'll dry quickly, especially acrylic. You can actually do color wheels with any kind of paint. You can do it with watercolor, you can do it with oil. You can use the color wheel for any color. I might add a little bit more yellow in there. So now I've got what's called a tertiary color. So a tertiary color is your primary color mixed in with a corresponding, which means on the wheel, something beside it, corresponding secondary color. So I'll move that up so you can see it. And look at, I'm getting like dabs all over my paper here. So there you go. So we have our primary yellow, we have our primary blue, we have our secondary green. If you mix your primary color with your secondary color, you get a tertiary color. Now you can't go mixing around. Like I can't mix this with one of these. It won't work on the wheel. But that's essentially how you do that. So now, and don't forget to say hello when you're on, guys. So now we are going to do the tertiary color, which is a primary with a secondary, but this time we're going to do the blue and the green. So when we mix those, we're getting the tertiary color of the green blue. Okay? So now I'm going to use my green, and I'm going to take a little bit of blue, and I'm going to add a little bit more blue to it. And like I said, when you're mixing colors on your color wheel, you always want to do half and half. So I'm doing half amounts equal of blue and green. And what that's going to give me is a really pretty blue-green. Or turquoise, basically. And again, the segments are a little bit off. I'm not worried about that too much. And that's a little bit too green. So what's happened is I haven't quite mixed in enough blue. I'm just going to do the quick coat there. And then I'm going to add just a hint more blue to it. And because this is wet, I can just put a little dab of blue and then just make sure I mix it in. You should be mixing this on the palette. So it's a really pretty turquoise color. And you'll wonder, I'll give you a little peekaboo trick ahead. You have something like this color here. So this is the teal turquoise color that I used in our painting yesterday. And you can actually create that using your colors. That's why it's really important to kind of learn your color wheel. So you can see there, it's a little hard to see, but that is like a green blue. It's like a turquoise color. Whoops. Add a little bit more blue to it. Isn't that pretty? There we go. That's beautiful. Beautiful. So there you go. On this side of the color wheel, we now have our primary colors. So our yellow and our blue. They make our secondary color green. And then the green and the primaries, both the blue and the yellow, make your tertiary, which are your yellow, your green, yellow, yellow, green, and your blue, green. Okay? There we go. So I am going to set that aside now. And now we're going to go to this side. So I'm just going to have a little sip there. So now we're going to do the same thing on this side. So we have our yellow and our red. So if we are going to mix our two primary colors of yellow and red, so there's our yellow. And I'm mixing a little extra because I'm going to be doing the tertiary colors as well, right? So I have my yellow. Oopsie daisy. I always keep lots of napkins handy. And then I have my red. And again, I'm doing equal and I'm doing a little extra. Okay. And then I'm going to mix those two together. And this is, you know, why you kind of use a knife, but I'm using a brush today. Usually when I do my my acrylic colors, I'll use a brush to mix. If I'm doing oil, I will definitely use a knife. You don't want to get all your paint caught up in your brush and now you've wasted paint, right? So that is a beautiful orange color. So essentially I've gone half blue, or sorry, half yellow, half red, which gives us our orange. So I'm going to paint my orange in there. And you'll see all primary, secondary, and tertiary colors are very vibrant. You know, you look at these colors here and you wouldn't quite consider them vibrant, but when you look at it, vibrancy means just kind of the intensity of the pigment. So there we go. We have a beautiful orange. And again, I'm doing this quickly, so don't look. I'm painting outside the lines. It's not as much about painting inside the lines. If you're OCD, definitely you want to do this a little neater, but I'm more just doing the study, right? So now, hi Dana, how are you? So now we have our orange. So your yellow and your red make your, which are your primary colors, make your secondary color, which is your orange. So now we're going to quickly just transfer that to here so that it has a spot in the outside color wheel. And again, I'm just, I'm not worrying too much about it being perfectly in the lines. It's more about the study and learning the colors. And, you know, like I said, time and time again, you can be the most seasoned artist on the face of the earth, and doing color wheels and doing color theory is essential to making sure that you keep your skills sharp. Hockey players, tennis players, basketball players, football players, they don't just play the game and go home. They practice for hours and hours and hours and hours daily to make sure that they keep their skills sharp. So doing color theory and doing color wheels and doing color studies is a really wonderful way to keep sharp. Like I said, we will be doing, I have an upcoming workshop. I'll let you guys know when I have the details kind of figured out on it, but we're going to be doing a color journal. We are going to put together a book and we're going to start doing some color studies. We'll start mixing colors and learning. And a color journal is a really wonderful way to keep a record of how you achieve certain colors. I can't tell you how many times I've painted something and just completely fell in love with the color that I've mixed. And, you know, a couple months down the road, somebody says, oh my God, I really love that painting. Can you do a version of that for me? And I can't for the life of me remember how I got that turquoise color or how I got that, you know, certain tint of pink. So it's really handy when you're doing a painting. Whenever I'm doing a painting, I do a color study. I take my color journal and I will actually plan out the colors for the painting. And I will keep a record of how I got certain colors, what colors I'm planning on using. And it's a really great way to stay creative without having to really paint something specific. So, hey guys, say hi when you're on. Hi Tammy, hi Peggy. So now we've got our secondary color orange, right? So now we're going to do the same thing that we did. And actually, I put an extra line in there. That's why it looked wonky to me. I put an extra line, guys. That's funny. I wondered why that looked funny. I was so busy trying to show you guys how to do it that I accidentally drew an extra line. That's hilarious. That would explain why it looked funny. Okay, so we've got our orange here now. I'm gonna move that up just a little bit higher. That explains a lot, guys. See, even Mama Muse makes mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes. There we go. Okay. So now, in order to, if you remember, tertiary colors are the 6 colors created by mixing primary with a secondary. So we've got our orange, which is our secondary. We've got the corresponding one, which is the next one on the wheel, which is the yellow. And from this way is the red. So I'm going to use my orange. That's why I mixed a little bit extra. And what we're going to do is I'm going to add on one side of it, I'm going to add some yellow. So remember, when you're mixing a color, especially a secondary or a tertiary, it's half and half. So I'm mixing half orange, half yellow. And we're going to get, can anybody guess? A yellow-orange, right? So I want to make sure that I'm doing equal amounts, half and half. And I'm going to get a very pretty, vibrant hue of yellow-orange. There we go. So that's why that looked funny. I was wondering when I did it really quickly why it looked funny. I added an extra line in there, guys. That's funny. So there we go. And again, I'm not worrying about it being perfect. When you do your first color wheel, it's actually almost better to do a larger one. Just until you get used to the color mixing. There we go. Isn't that pretty? Gorgeous. You can see my line through there, but that's okay. So now you can see my orange, which is my secondary color, mixed with my primary, gives it a really beautiful yellow-orange. It's almost like a peachy color. Isn't that pretty? And then I'm going to rinse my brush off. And now we're going to do the tertiary on this side. So to do this one, we're going to mix our orange with the red. So I've got my orange here. I'm going to take a little extra red, and again, equal amounts, half and half of my orange and my red. And we're going to make a beautiful orange-red or red-orange. There we go. That's so pretty. This is one of the tertiary colors that's a little bit more difficult to discern. Red is a very strong hue. It's very dominant. There we go. Perfect. Isn't that gorgeous? So there you go. Now we have this side of our color wheel done. So now we're going to do the bottom. So we have our primary blue and our red. So I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to rinse my brush off. And now we're going to do the bottom of our color wheel. Hi, David. So I'm going to mix equal amounts of my blue and my red. So I'm taking a dab of red. And then I'm taking a dab of my blue, and again, equal amounts, half and half, guys, okay? Mix those in together, and can anybody guess? Everybody knows, I know they do. We're making a beautiful, rich, deep purple color. Excuse me, guys. My throat is very dry tonight. There we go. So, and it's a little hard to see on camera. On the camera, it actually does look a little dark. But once it dries, it'll lighten up a little bit. I know typically when paint dries, it dries a little bit darker. But I find purple is one of those weird colors that when it's wet, it looks darker than it does when it's dry. It kind of goes against the rules. There we go. And again, it's a little hard to see on camera. I'm trying to get it to, once it dries, you'll see it a little bit better. Okay, now put, whoops, a little bit of water on there. And then I'm going to put it on the outside wheel to fill it in. Whoops. And you'll see I'm not doing this perfectly. It's more about creating the wheel. There we go. That's a beautiful purple color. Again, it's hard to see on the camera, guys. Purple is one of those weird, strange colors. I find purple is shy unless you start adding, unless you start playing with purple tints and shades, and we will explain what that means after. There you go. Isn't that pretty? Perfect. So again, your secondary color mixed with your primary color gets our tertiary color. So on this side, mixing our purple and our red, and again, equal amounts, will give a really nice red purple. And again, make sure you're using half and half for your colors, right? There we go. So you'll see when the paint is thinner, you can see the color a lot better. And you'll notice once I added my red to it, it kind of made it a little easier to see on the camera. Purple is a very shy color when it comes to photographing or depicting on camera. You have to kind of start playing with lights and stuff to really take advantage of how it looks. So there you go. It's a little difficult to see because purple's shy, but that is my tertiary. I'll add a little bit more red to it just to brighten it up a little bit. There we go. There. That's beautiful. Isn't that pretty? There we go. So now for this side, again, same thing. We are going to mix our purple and we're going to mix a little more blue into it. So we're going to get a really perfect bluish purple. And again, every color you could imagine that you want to recreate starts off with this color wheel, guys. There we go. Isn't that pretty? There we go. So this is like a really nice bluish purple. There we go. There. Isn't that beautiful? There we go. And again, it's not perfect. I'm not worried about it being perfectly inside the lines. It's more about drawing and getting your colors down there. Isn't that beautiful? That's gorgeous, eh? Nice. So there are our primary colors, the yellow, blue, red. Our secondary colors are achieved by mixing your primaries, which are the red and blue produces the purple. The yellow and the blue produces green. And your yellow and your red gives you orange. So your tertiary colors are achieved by mixing a secondary color with a primary color. So in order to get the tertiary here, you have your yellow and your orange, make your tertiary. Your red and your orange, make your tertiary. And the same thing all the way around. So the 6 tertiary colors are red, orange, which is here, yellow, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and red, violet, or purple. These colors have a lot of variance of them. You can tweak them to your lighting. You can add a little bit extra of each color to make it a little more orange, a little more yellow. You could actually expand this wheel out even further. You could do another level. You could keep going. You could keep going. If I did another level out here, I could mix these two more on this side. Let's see here. I'll just draw it really quickly. So if I added another layer of this wheel, just for the heck of it, okay, and I added another extra section, I could do another further. So I would do this color mixed with this color will be a little more yellow. This color mixed with this color will be a little more here. So you can keep expanding that wheel out and really experiment. When you start expanding from there, I would actually recommend doing things a little differently, and that is something that we will look at a later date. I'll talk to you about exploring specific colors when we look at tint and shade and all that stuff like that. But for now, I'm just going to kind of quickly talk to you about color schemes now. So people ask me all the time, How do you decide what colors to do on your paintings? So a misconception is that I just kind of pick colors and throw it together. It's kind of true, but the subconscious choosing of the colors for my paintings is actually based on a lot of education when it comes to color. So I just don't say, okay, I'm going to do this color, this color, this color. In my head, I'm actually thinking about my color theory. It's kind of engraved in my brain subconsciously. So there's different types of color schemes that you can do. So just very quickly, I'll give you just a little bit of a rundown of some of them. So a monochrome color scheme technically means one color. So you think mono is one color. So color harmonies with a monochrome include only one color in different value, intensity, and tints and shades. So if I choose to do a painting monochrome in yellow, the only colors I am going to be using are yellow. To change that yellow color, to add shading, to add tints, add tones, I am actually going to use 3 colors. I'm going to use white, I'm going to use black, and I'm going to use gray. And this is where you can really get into expanding color themes and color studies in your color journal. When we do our color journal workshop, we will actually explore this a lot more. I know it can be really confusing. It's really it seems complicated, but it's not, okay? This is how you really learn your colors, and this is how you really understand how to manipulate color. Once you do that, it kind of goes with the old adage. Once you learn the rules, then you can start breaking them. So we'll explore that when we do our color journal, okay? So now we have what's called an adjacent color or analogous color theme. So when you're looking at an analogous color theme, I'm using colors that neighbor each other on the color wheel. So an example is a color scheme that includes various values and intensities of reds and oranges. So if I do an analogous color theme, I am going to pick 2 colors that are right beside each other on the color wheel. So if I'm doing a red-orange, I am going to do 2 colors right beside each other. So say I do these 2 right here. So I'm going to do yellow and the yellow-orange. Those are the only 2 colors or hues that I'm going to use in my painting. And I'm going to manipulate those 2 hues with tint, tone, and shade, which is using white, using black, and using gray. And again, that is something that we will explore in our color journal workshop. So colors opposite each other on the color wheel are called complementary colors. So for example, let's say yellow and purple are complementary colors. They complement each other. Blue and orange, green and red. Okay, they complement each other. If you've ever seen any of Picasso's paintings, or sorry, Van Gogh's paintings, he does a lot of complementary color themes. So you'll see quite a few of his paintings have reds and oranges, and it just helps make the painting pop. It's just a method of choosing colors. So another one is called I'm trying to think here, a triad. So a triad is a color scheme that uses colors that point of an equilateral triangle. So 3 colors spaced equally on the color wheel. So let's say a triadic scheme could be red, blue, and yellow. Okay, so think of, you have your triangle here. If I were to turn that triangle gradually around, and it's actually really handy once you have your color wheel, is to cut out a little triangle, and you can turn it. So if I turn this triangle one this way, my triadic scheme would be the yellow-green, the blue-purple, and, oops, let me think here, yeah, and here. Okay, that would be called a triad. So a single, another color scheme would be a single split complementary. And I don't expect you guys to remember all this. I'm just kind of going over it with you. A lot of people ask me all the time, how do you choose your colors? So I'm subconsciously, this is kind of ingrained in my brain, and I just do it naturally. But again, doing a color journal is a really wonderful way to kind of learn these things and understand. And once you start exploring these color themes, you really understand why a painting appeals to you. I know sometimes you're, looking online or on Facebook, and you'll see a picture come up, and you'll think, oh my goodness, that picture is so gorgeous. That is just a beautiful painting. And you're not sure why. You just love it, but you're not sure why. When you understand your color theory, photographers, artists, graphic designers, all understand these color themes. And they understand what these color themes evoke. And the picture or the painting that you're looking at that you absolutely love is designed that way for a reason. So it's very, very interesting to look at colors. So you can do a single split complementary. So basically a single split complementary theme would be, you'll take one color, then you'll go directly across and you'll pick the two colors on either side. So if I'm doing a split complementary yellow, I'm going to do yellow, I'm going to do blue purple, and red purple. So that's a split complementary. And then another one really quickly is a double split complementary. So you're going to do two on either side of one square. So if I'm doing a double split complementary, I could do my yellow green, my yellow orange, and then I would come straight across for each of those. So then it would be the blue purple and the red purple. So that's a cross split or a double split complementary. So without getting too much into all that, I just wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of background on that. I'm actually going to do another workshop, but I'll just quickly go over a few things with you before we finish up today. And I'll do another video kind of covering what I'm going to talk to you about right now. So when you're looking at a color wheel, you have your warm colors and your cool colors. Excuse me, guys. So essentially your warm colors are your reds, your yellows, and your oranges. Okay? So essentially everything kind of this side. Your cool colors include your blues, your greens, and your violets. Okay, so you have your warm colors and your cool colors. Excuse me. Sorry guys, my throat is really dry today. Okay, so in our next video, we're going to be exploring this a little further. But I'm just going to kind of quickly go over this with you right now. And again, in the next tutorial video, we're going to cover it a little bit, but we will take it even further when we do our color journal workshop. But just to give you guys a little bit of information leading into the next workshop. And once you've done this, it'll kind of prep you for our next workshop. So we're going to look at a couple things. You'll hear a lot of people talking about tint, tone, shade. It can get very, very confusing. Remember that hue is a pure color on the color wheel. So remember I was saying 6 to 12 colors usually are hue. So you have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's your 12 colors. So these 12 colors, and this is why we took our primary and our secondary to the outside wheel, so that you guys could see this whole wheel right here is your hues. Okay, a hue is a pure color, diluted or unmixed. When I say unmixed, I mean with what we'll talk about in a second here, the tint, the tone, and the shade. It is simply achieved by mixing your primaries. Does that make sense? So a hue is a color that can be achieved by mixing only primary colors. So when I say mixing only primary colors, I mean using these three colors. So yellow and blue make green, and mixing your secondary and your primary gives you your tertiary, but you're still mixing the pure colors. Your green includes yellow and blue. Your orange includes red and yellow. So your hues are your pure colors, undiluted. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to touch really quickly on three other things. So you have what's called a tint. Sorry, my table's shaking a little bit there. I'm trying not to. A tint, a tone, and a shade. We're not going to kind of paint those today. We're just going to talk about them a little bit. And then in our next workshop, we'll actually cover those, okay? So a tint, and you'll hear people talking about this all the time. So it's an orange tint, it's a blue tint, it's a gray tone, it's a blue shade. It can get very, very confusing and overwhelming and almost intimidating when you don't understand what those terms mean. And frankly, it's very, very, very simple, guys. We'll explore it. So a tint is something, it's also called, and it helps to remember, a pastel. So a tint is any hue mixed, okay, so any hue or pure color mixed with varying quantities of white. Okay, so tint equals white. And we will actually explore, we're going to do another kind of color wheel, and we will explore all of our colors doing tint. Okay, so yellow, a yellow tint is a gradual scale of taking white and adding a little bit more yellow to it each time. So a tint essentially is your pastels, okay? Perfect. So a tint can, it doesn't make it brighter, even though the color may appear brighter, it actually isn't. It remains the same color, just a paler version or a more pastel version. So a tint is a pastel version of a hue. C'est bon? Okay. A tone now. Actually, you know what? We'll do shade first. A shade. So if I have a yellow shade, okay, a true shade is any pure color or any pure hue with black added to it. Okay, so if I take yellow and I gradually add a little bit more black each time, that is going to give me a shade. Okay, does that make sense? Now, when you're mixing your tint, the proper way to mix a tint is to start out with your white. You start with white, and then you gradually add a little bit more of the hue into it. With shade, you do it opposite. So you start out with your color or your hue, and you gradually add black to it. And the reason why is black is very strong, okay? If you start off with black and add yellow to it to get a yellow that's just slightly shaded, you're going to use 10 times more of the paint to mix that color. If rather than, oh, sorry guys, Jack is on the computer again. Rather than if you start out with yellow and I add just a dab of black to it, it's going to take less paint to achieve the color that you're looking for. Does that make sense? Okay. So a shade is adding black. Okay. And then you have your final one, which is a tone. So a tone, essentially what a tone will do, it will actually tone down the intensity of the color. That's why it's called tone. So tone colors are generally considered more pleasing to the eye. We will actually explore that in the color journal as well. A really good way to make a color wheel with tones on it is actually to pre-mix your grays. So you will actually do a color wheel or like a color scale with your varying grays. So you'll start out with white, add a little bit more black, add a little bit more black, add a little bit more black. And usually a scale of a tone is anywhere from 10 to 12 stages. Okay. So same thing here. So, you know, I would start off with white here, and then I would add a little bit more black, 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 gradually until I get like almost pure black. So we will explore that as well in another workshop coming up. We'll actually do a workshop for each one of these, the tint, the tone, and the shade, because each one is a little bit complicated. But once you know it, you can just do so many more things with color. So today we will just kind of stay with our color wheel. We'll just kind of do a quick little review. So we have our primary colors, which are our yellow, our blue, and our red. Our secondary colors are created by mixing two of the primary colors. So yellow and red make orange. Red and blue make green. Red and blue make purple. Sorry, guys. And blue and yellow make green. Okay. And then to get your tertiary colors, which is your third layer, you would mix a secondary color with a primary color. So our green mixed with our yellow gives us a yellow-green. Yellow mixed with orange gives us a yellow-orange. So those are your tertiary. So your three in your center are your primary. Actually, here, I'll use my Sharpie just so you can see that a little bit better. Actually, you can see it pretty good, but your primary, your green, your purple, and your orange are your secondary colors. And your outside circle includes your tertiary colors. Okay, so I'm just going to write really quickly on here my letters, and it's easy to remember. So P is for primary. Can't really see the blue because it's darker, but S is for secondary. Okay, and then your tertiary are your in-betweens. So tertiary, 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 and tertiary. So all together you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So in honesty, essentially there are 12 hues, okay, which is the brightest, I'm trying to think here, most vivid version of a primary, secondary, or tertiary color. So there, it's undiluted. Okay, so it's not diluted with anything. Okay, doing a painting with only hues would actually result in kind of a visually unpleasing painting. This is where your tint and tone and shade come in. Okay, by taking your primary colors and choosing a color scheme and adding in tint, tone, and shade, now you get the dynamic composition. Now you get the dynamic painting. So we will actually have a series of workshops coming up live on Facebook. It will be up there. It'll be up there for a while. No, you know, you can kind of look at these videos anytime you want to. And we're going to, in the next couple of videos, we're actually going to do one for each of these. So we're going to do tint, tone, and shade in individual workshops. And that will kind of prepare us for an upcoming color journal mini workshop series that I have coming up. So I hope that I kind of expanded your mind a little bit today. I hope I kind of helped you understand color a little bit better. Excuse me, guys. like I always say, a lot of people will say, I know my colors. I don't need to do a color wheel. Why do I need to do a color wheel? I know my basics. You know, as a professional artist, as a professional visual arts teacher, to me, that would be like a hockey player saying, you know, I don't need to practice. Why do I need to practice? I know how to play hockey. You need to practice to hone your skill. You need to practice to perfect your skill, and you need to practice to kind of entrench the basics into your head to the point where you do it naturally. As a professional artist, as a professional visual arts teacher, you know, me, Mama Muse, I do color wheels all the time. I do color studies all the time. I am actually going to be starting a brand new color journal. And that mini workshop, you guys will actually create that with me. I will show you guys how I set it up, how I start it, how I lay it out, and we'll have some real fun with color. So for now, that is kind of just the basics on color. We've covered the color wheel, so your primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. We've talked a little bit about color schemes. And in the next couple of workshops coming up, we're going to explore by taking these hues, which is your 12 colors, and expanding them using tint, tone, and shade. So I hope you guys had a really good time tonight, whether you're watching the live video or you're watching the replay. Please take a moment to comment. Let me know if you have any questions. Just put them on the comment section of the video, and I will get back to you all individually, or you can message the page. And if you do your color wheels, please go to the comment or review section of our Facebook page and post them and let me know how you enjoyed our workshop today. So that is it for today. I hope everybody had a wonderful evening. I hope I gave you a little more insight into color. And please stay tuned. I will be announcing the next kind of mini The Basics, quote unquote, workshops. We're going to explore the hues, and we're going to look at tint, tone, and shade. So everybody have a wonderful night. Much love from Mama Muse, and stay creative, guys.